Hey, what's up and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be mixing the Does It Need Double Bass series drum recording of Family Guy. So stay tuned because it's gonna be a good time. Before we get started, my name's Martin, and if you like this style of video, be sure to leave a thumbs up or even consider subscribing. If you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear from you down below. This video is going to be a behind-the-scenes look at the Does It Need Double Bass series Family Guy episode, which will be linked in the pinned comment, in the description, and on the screen right now. Somewhere over there, if you want to go check it out. I'm definitely not a professional mixer or sound audio engineer, but I've studied lots of videos, and I just wanted to show you guys my process. So, let's go. So here we are, I'm using Logic Pro. I've got all my drum tracks here. You can see starting out I've got a stacked track for the bass drum with a sub track, which is really low. It just picks up a lot of the low end. We can dive into that later. I've got a snare top, snare bottom, 10-inch tom, 12-inch tom, 14-inch tom, 16-inch tom, hi-hat mic, left overhead, right overhead, and a far China microphone. Now this is like, it's a little bit kind of like a room mic, but it's kind of far over on the right hand side of the kit, so I just call it the far China because that's where the China is, far China. And then typically on all of my tracks, all of the songs that I do, there's a notes track, and this is usually just a count in, or if it's like an 8-minute song and there's a part way down, it'll be like, don't forget this fill, because I'm a big advocate for doing single take tracks or single take drum recordings, because I think you're just cheating yourself if you splice together different takes. Anyways, and then of course the actual song itself, in this case it's Family Guy. So let's take a listen to kind of how that count-in sounds right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Sweet. You can see there is this little drop down. So what I'm going to do, this is going to be grouping all of the tracks. I find this is really good. Obviously they're not all grouped now. What's going on? That's okay. Select the members. There is no member selected. Okay, so I guess I'll teach you guys how to do a group, making a group. So let's make a group so it's easy to select all of the tracks at once. Basically what we have here, you can see here where it says group. What I'm just going to do is I'll make sure that I select all of the tracks that I want in the group. So everything, yes please. And then I'm just going to select here. We'll go to drums. Perfect. That's it. I'm going to show you guys, first of all the different takes here. So this one, this song took 67 takes. Oh my God. And probably because there was like maybe one beat that was off. Like you can see here, some of these bass drums are a little bit off, or maybe on this one I didn't hit a snare right or something, or you know, a fill didn't land like I wanted it to, or this one didn't start correctly. So let's take a look. We'll take a look at the first one because I know this one started off, okay, take 12. So 12 minus 67, 55 takes, whatever. This one started off, this is the first time I had played through the song, and typically that's how these covers go. That doesn't need double bass. It's all just kind of, I have a general idea of what I want to do and what's going to fit well, and then I kind of sculpt it as we get closer and closer to the end. So let's take a look. This should be the first take, and it's definitely not the final take. So let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. You can see it's like very not swinging at all. So that had to change. Gross. There we go. A little bit of double action going on. Okay. So it needed some work. Let's take a look at one of the fails, I think. Maybe this one. Let's try that one out. And so we'll just listen to that first. Now, because I have everything on this group setting, and it's selected here, by selecting, you know, the drop down of different takes, it will just select whatever you want. So if I wanted to listen to this one, you know, I could go to that one, and it's going to select every single track. So if I go down to the snare drum track, it'll do the same thing. Okay, so let's shrink that down so we can all see it, and let's take a listen to this one.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1.
Didn't like it. It sounded okay. I just didn't like it. Let's go to the next one real quick, and then we'll actually get into editing.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1.
What screwed up?
One.
It sounded good to me. I don't know. I'm just crazy. Okay, so what I generally like to do first is I'm just going to deselect these. I'm going to go into the toms, and I'm going to manually gate these toms. You can kind of hear it. Let's do some isolation. So I'm just soloing the tom tracks. Now these are all panned. I'm going to pan them as if I'm playing. So the 10-inch tom is going to be on my left-hand side. The smallest tom is the left-hand side. And they kind of circle around so that, you know, your floor toms are on your right. If you're left-handed, obviously flip that. So if I just play these tracks here, you can kind of see, let's zoom in a little bit. I'm just doing control movements here. You can see there's a whole, like these tom mics pick up a whole lot of other stuff that's going on, specifically the snare drum and even a little bit of the bass drum you can see coming through. So let's see how that sounds. Now I do have noise gates on these toms, compression, all that stuff. So maybe let's take the gates off just to show you what's coming through, because it's going to be pretty nasty. Okay. Ugh. Hear that? It's gross. Let's clean it up. So I'm going to turn on the gates. So the noise gate basically will open up the 10-inch tom. So basically what it's doing, it's going to cut things out that are negative 13 decibels and below. So if we just look at, here's a good spot. I'm going to loop this section here. So you can see there, the noise gate didn't allow any of this stuff here to come through. Now if we shrink that down, play it again, it's not doing anything, right? So I'm going to raise that back up to 13, and you can choose how low you want the volume on all of the other notes that are being hit. So in this case, it's negative 33 decibels. If I wanted it totally cut out, I would just knock it down to negative 100. Then you wouldn't be able to hear anything. So let's try that. right? Cool. Point proven. So you can try that if you're having issues with noise coming through on your mics that you don't want. Only for hits that you do want, set the threshold appropriately. The other thing that I do is hold and release. It's going to hold the gate open for 80 milliseconds here, and it's going to release it for 381 milliseconds, which is going to kind of slowly close off the sound. So that's, you can hear it kind of fade out. That's what's happening here. So if I had a massive release time, let's check that out. I'm going to have to increase this. I'm going to move that over. Oh, cool. So you see it stayed open way longer than it probably should. So with a tom, it should be get the note and cut it off quick. Let's 381. That's where I was at. So let's play it again, and I'll show the difference. So on the last one that you heard, there was hi-hats coming through on the 10-inch tom mic, which makes sense because it's right beside it. So use some gates on your drums, tom specifically. The one that I find is always difficult for me is this 14-inch tom. I think it's just the microphone. So let's listen to that one. Ugh. And this mic here also has a pretty nasty rattle to it. So apologies for that. We might have to EQ that out later. So let's, first of all, I think it didn't pick up that first hit. So we're going to have to bump this to like -8. That's better. Sometimes because this microphone is pointed directly towards the snare as well, it'll sometimes pick up the snare, and that's where manual gating comes in. So let's just show you what that means. So what I'm going to do here, if you're in Logic, or I guess any other program, is basically you're just going to chop the track. So I'm going to do a Control or Command T for chopping, and then we're just going to reduce, or we're going to take out all the stuff that's kind of, not really important to the floor tom track. So I'm going to go ahead and do this for this track. Okay, so now that we have the 14-inch tom manually gated, I'll show you what that sounds like without the gate on it. This is what I used to do on my first covers. I would just kind of pick a point where the track would line up with a kind of a loud hit, or like, usually with like a crash or with a bass drum or a snare hit. That's where you want this to be cut off at. And I found that was kind of the best way to avoid like an abrupt stop in the sound. You kind of want that like natural ring out. So let's take a listen. You can see it's like a hard stop. And if you want it to fade out this way and you don't know how to do gates or anything like that, you can always go into the annotation and you can just add in some volume changes here. Let's do a couple. So then this will allow the track to do like that natural fade out that you're looking for. So I'll leave it open again so you can kind of see what's happening. So it has that fade out. What I'll do is, you know what? Let's leave the 14 like that. And then that'll be everyone's little secret for this track. What? Okay. Let's do the same over here. Ooh, maybe not. You know what? We're not going to do that because we're going to have to look at we'll save this step for later. Once we look at all the different volumes and the final mix. So let's just see what everything sounds like. There you go. You can hear that one of the tom microphones had that snare drum come right through. So I think it's the 12-inch. Let's look at that. Oh, hell yeah. And I still have the gate on that one, so let's take a look. So the 12-inch tom has a -13 threshold. If we bump it down, we'll just loop it. Oh, no, sorry, other way. You can kind of hear a ring in this tom too, and it's the actual microphone. They're Pile PDKM 7 mics, and if you're doing covers, lots and lots of covers, those mics are going to fall apart. So maybe if you're doing serious recording, invest in some good microphones or stands. Stands make all the difference. Let's take a look at this one. You can still kind of hear a little bit in there. So let's see. Where'd it go? Because it's only reduced to 33. So maybe we reduce it down to like 60. Yeah, I can't hear anything. Cool. So, okay, let's take a listen to everything all together. And if there's any issues, I'm just going to cut them out. Perfect. That's exactly what we want to hear. Oh. Oh. You can see the 10-inch tom had that flare up there. So let's... Oh. This is why manual gating is always a little bit better. You know what? Let's manual gate the first half of this one. You know what? Let's just manual gate everything. We're just going to do that. Okay, so we've got everything manually gated, and I just kind of discovered that this 14-inch floor tom here, it's not coming through. So we got to take a look at what the actual gate threshold is. Let's go check it out. Let's leave the other ones in. No, let's take them out. Nothing. There is, something's happening there. So let's go to the gate settings. We got to lower this threshold so it can come through. Okay. And you can hear there that that's going to be a cymbal hit. So it'll kind of get... Whoa. Oh. It'll kind of get stopped out when kind of hear the tom actually kind of stops its frequency there anyways on that second hit. Let's move that closer. But damn, you can really hear that kind of metallic jingling in this tom. It sucks. Ugh. Let's play it with the others. So I'll probably have to bump this volume up. This is what I was talking about earlier when you play with the volumes after everything's all set up. So, doing the manual gating and the volume adjustment is kind of you need to start and finish. You need to sandwich those two in all the other stuff that you're going to do. It'll work. Okay. Now that we've looked at gates are on everything here. I'll pull up the mixer. You can see that, yeah, gates are on the snare drums, not on the overheads. The overheads should ring out. Gates on the bass drum, just to get rid of any of the other crap that's going on. Sometimes you can see here, that's a snare hit. You can definitely see here, this is a snare hit. That's going to be where that bad boy is. Recording live drums, there's a lot of bleed that happens. So that's one thing that you can try to get rid of, but if you can't really do it, gate the audio afterwards. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at the bass drum next, because now that the toms are done, that's usually where I go next. So this is the bass drum track. Let's shrink it down a bit, and let's unsolo these toms. Okay, so the bass drum, I've got this guy with a gate on it. You can take a look at it. -16 is the threshold. Anything that's, below that gets reduced 100%. There's a 100 millisecond hold, and it's only open for 233 milliseconds. I typically use this setting for all of the tracks, just so it's like a short, quick hit. Channel EQ, this is kind of where, let's sample a section here.
4-1.
Ugh. Okay. I'm not going to include the subtrack. The subtrack is just something else. So there you go. That's the bass drum by itself. Let's take the EQ off just to see, let's take everything off. Show you what we start with. So it's kind of flat, kind of cardboard boxy. The tuning on the bass drum that I have is very much as low as it'll go. So I'm using an EMAD 2 on the batter and an Evans something with a porthole on the front. I forget. So it's pretty low. It's a maple bass drum, maple kit. So let's start out with the gate. So I'll add that on. Turn it on. You can it kind of cleans it up already. You can definitely hear. Then what I'll do is I'll add in the EQ. Ooh. Mm. So what you can do for metal or for like a very prominent kick is lower down. I'll increase this size here. Let's go to 125. What I do is I cut out a lot of the mids here, so that gets rid of that cardboard boxiness. And then I bump a little bit of the highs here, within this range, 1420 hertz. Then I have a little bit more up here, cut out the majorly high notes, so you don't like wake up all the dogs in your neighborhood. And then all of these isolated dips or peaks are basically just taking out tones within the drum that you don't like. And I'm just going to show you kind of what this sounds like with these removed and with them maybe boosted, so you can definitely hear what I'm trying to cut out. This is just something where I've kind of played around with and being like, I don't like that noise. Let's get rid of it. Okay, so we'll take that one out. So there's this weird like thuddiness with that in, right? So what I'll do is you can kind of hear it now, eh? Like it's a very like thumpiness and so let's move it around just to show you kind of what you can do with this one. Like if there's something that you don't like, this is kind of what I do. I just kind of like, I'm like, let's figure it out. So I'm gonna undo. Yeah, there we go. Same down here. Let's play with this one. I don't know. Maybe I was picky that day. I can't tell any difference. Oh, okay. So that's what I didn't like. Yeah, I can see why. Okay, cool. So that's basically how I do EQs on a bass drum. Everything's good. And take out the really low stuff. So if we show what's going on there. I don't know. I can't hear a difference. If you've got a sub, it might sound a lot different. I'm also going through some, cheapo studio headphones. So, anyways, those might have been after the fact because I'll do this mix through computer speakers, listen to it on my phone, listen to it, as many different types of audio devices I can just to get a general idea of like, okay, it's going to sound all right. Or, oh, I'm going to need to change this up. Cool. Next thing, we're going to add the compressor to it. This is the GIGGITY smash and grab. So definitely recommended. Let's take a listen to this now. Ooh. Let's go back to the gate. Okay. So one other thing for the gate is the attack. I usually have a 3 millisecond. I think that's what that means. Anyways, I usually bump this up to 3 just because if you don't, it's going to have a really it's going to be so quick. There'll be like almost like a pop. I found that at least on these recordings. So that's something else. But the compressor basically just like turbo punches your bass drum or whatever you're putting it on. So I've got it set to kick, saturation all the way down, mixing it at 65. Air is basically like kind of your high end, I suppose. Beef is kind of your low end. Threshold -44, output 11.5, and the input of 3.3. Just gives a really kind of like in your face. And then limiter. I don't know why I have that on here, but I feel like it's doing something. Yeah. So it's just limiting how much is coming through. I remember watching a YouTube tutorial on all the settings here. You can play around with them if you want, but I'll just play it with and without. So you can see that this specific bass drum hit there is significantly louder without the limiter. Now we're going to put the limiter on. So it just kind of like evens the playing field. So that's the bass drum. We can take a look at the sub track. Basically this one here is, we'll just solo it. I'm just going to boost the volume so you can hear what's going on. So it's using these are all standard plugins. And I learned this from a like hip hop mixing video on YouTube. Forget what it is, but Basically, what we're using here is we're going to be using the test oscillator. You can find this. Where is it? In utility. So test oscillator. And we're going to sine sweep it. Cool. Cool. Oh, no, we're not. We're going to do test tone. That's fun. So this one, we're going to do a noise gate, but we're going to side chain this to your bass drum track. So this is only going to be open. Like, let's turn this off. This is what's always on this channel here. If you don't have the noise gate on. So this is kind of neat. So the gate is acting off of the bass drum channel. So when that is open, this note will allow to play. So what I've kind of done is it'll be a short attack too. So it'll only, you can see it's only just a quick thud. Like, that's all you need. And then you can play around with the, the frequency of that note to match your bass drum or to match that boost that you want. Right? Like, if I play around with this. Whoa. Jesus Christ. Sorry. You can go real low. So I got it at 40. When we mix that in, it's just a hidden layer. So anyways, that is the sub. And then I've got a stacking track there. I think you can do create a stack track. That's how that's done. So both of these are all controlled by the one volume here. And I put an EQ on this after the fact as well, just to bump some more of the clickiness of the bass drum, a little bit of the high end stuff, just to give it a little bit more presence in the mix. Cut out a little bit more of the cardboard boxiness, and then boosted a little bit of the lows. So it was just one of those things where I was like, I wish this would sound like this. So that's what I did. We can talk about buses later, but basically that just means I'm bussing all these guys over to a reverb channel. Let's take a look at the snare drum. So the snare on this track is a Mapex Warbird. It's a Chris Adler snare drum. It rocks, 12-inch by 5.5-inch. So let's take a look here. Again, same thing, got the noise gates going on. We'll take a look at the snare top and snare bottom. So you can kind of see here all the reductions and thresholds, etc., etc. Channel EQ. So this one, we'll just take a look at the snare top. Take a look at it without. You know what? Let's take off the other stuff too. So it sounds a bit different than what you just heard. So I wanted a little bit of crackiness, so I did bump the, the 2K 1500 hertz to, around 8,000. That's the right number. I took out some of these, mid notes or some of these frequencies here. There was some weird hums to the snare, so let's take a listen to those. Let's bump this one so you can actually hear what's happening. Right? Doesn't sound so good. And then I'll do the other one. To me, I didn't like that, so we took them out. Pretty easy. Bumped a little bit of the lows and then took out quite a bit of the very, very low end, because with the bass drum and with the toms, I figured we can kind of get rid of that. All right. And then the limiter, of course, and then the compressor. So smash and grab again. Got this is set to, oh wow, I did the pro version on this one. Okay, similar stuff. I've got it mixed 86% this time. Very cool. The sneaky thing about this one is it's being bussed completely 100% to we'll call it a smash track. And that's basically just a track where it's a very, very saturated, sound. So let's take a listen to that by itself. It's wild. It just gives it a little bit more like fattiness. So that's something cool that you can do, a little trick. Bus 3 isn't even being used. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bus, no send. That's the one I'm looking for. Let's take a look at the snare bottom then real quick. I'm going to bump the volume on this so you can actually hear it. So I didn't think that a snare bottom mic would really do a lot to the mix, but then after having one on, I was like, wow, this actually kind of like sounds pretty cool. So let's take a listen to it with absolutely nothing on it. You can hear a lot of the wires. That's kind of neat. It just gives it, again, a little bit more character to the snare drum. So those are just reverbs, the buses. So I can get into that later. Let's get the gate on there. So it's off. Then it's on. Cool. Now, if we look at the reverb, it's going to be very similar to the one before, because you're going to have the same tones coming through the snare drum, right? Like you can see, this is the snare top. This is the snare bottom. Let's rearrange this. Oh, sorry. I'm going to get dizzy. So you can kind of see that we've got the same frequencies here being cut out. A little bit different on which ones are being boosted. The highs to catch the actual snare wires a little bit more to get that actual snappiness. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing for the snare bottom. Let's go to the compression. This one is actually a stock compressor that you can use. And fun thing about this is they've got a lot of different setups here. So you can do snare top, snare, whatever, rock snare, bottom, lots of cool stuff in here. These are just the settings that I kind of played around with that seemed to sound the best to me. Cool. And then the gain. So this is something that I learned a little bit later on, was dealing with inverting the phase. Now let's take a look. Let's really, really zoom in on these tracks. So you can see this is one of the snare hits here, right? And if you look at these waves, they almost are exactly opposite of what you see on the snare top. Now, one way to, well, if you have these, waves, opposite of one another, they're going to start canceling out sounds, and the mix is going to be a little bit flat. It's not going to kill the mix. I just recently discovered about this, and some of the videos still sound pretty decent. So with that, basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be inverting the phase on the snare bottom so it will match the snare top. And then you'll have a better mix. So if you go into Logic, into your audio effects, you can go down to utility and gain, go into mono. So let's bring that up. And basically what we're just going to do is we're going to do this phase invert. Make sure it's selected. And there you go. It's not going to show anything. You just know it's on. So with that being said, that is the snare bottom. Now to mix the snare bottom into the actual snare track as well, let's turn both of these on. So what we're going to do here in mixing the snare bottom into the top snare is I found that through a few different videos that you let the snare drum play as so, and then you bring the volume of the bottom up until you're like, okay, that sounds good. You can hear it kind of like shh in the background. Let's try it again. Maybe. Cool. I think that's good. Again, just adding more to this overall sound. Now, so we've done bass drum, we've done snare. Let's do some of these toms. Okay, let's look at this 10-inch tom. Oh, turn off snares. See ya. 10-inch tom. Ooh, that's nice. Okay, let's take a look. We already looked at the gates, channel EQ. So this one, for rock toms, I really am a huge fan of cutting out tons of the mids and then bumping a little bit of the highs here, just so you get a smack. It's almost the same as mixing a bass drum, in my opinion. Nolly has a really great video on how to mix as well, so definitely check those out. Same thing as before. All of these, these isolated frequency drops are, areas that, maybe the drum had a horrible ring. So I was like, ugh, let's get rid of that. So let's hear this without EQ. Let's hear it just totally wide open, nothing on it. Ugh. Okay, let's listen to it with a gate. You can see up here it's open, close, open, close. Cool. Let's add that EQ on. See, even just with EQ, it already sounds way better. You can, if that's what you like, you can just punch the volume on it, or you can add a little bit of compression to make it really stand out in the mix. Let's take a look at what this guy sounds like without this one. So there's a really low frequency that just kind of like, I don't know, I didn't like it, so I took it out. Let's bump it up. See what I mean? Gross. We'll undo what I did there. And then let's, I'll just show you what this sounds like without. Right? Cardboard box. Not good. And then a couple bumps here to the highs. I think this one, yeah, it's all just kind of playing around, you know, until you find something where you're like, that sounds good. So let's take a look at the limiter. Again, that's just, you know, making sure everything is kind of equal hits. If you're really slamming on those drums, and let's take a look at the compressor. So this is again the Smash and Grab by Get Good Drums. It's on toms, saturation 0. Oh, it was a little bit on. Anyways, not mixed the full way, so you still get some of the natural sound in there. A little bit of highs, a little bit of beef. Threshold -18, output 5.2, input 2.7. So it's bumping the volume just a little bit. Oh, and then some reverb. Woo. And that's kind of the process with the 12-inch tom as well. Very, very similar. You can see the little bit different of an EQ. Where are you? Here we are. Ooh. Solo U. Oh. Turn down that volume. I think that's what I need to do. So we can listen to this without anything on it. It's probably going to sound like garbage. Pump the volume because we took off the compressing. It sounds like I'm playing on like empty pizza boxes. Okay, let's just go through it again. So you can see it already, like the volume fades out with that gate. Channel EQ. Already, channel EQ makes it sound so much better. Oh, okay. Limiter to make it, you know, even all the way out. Take out some of the majorly high velocity hits. And then I'm just gonna turn down the volume and pump the Smash and Grab on. I use this one, yeah. Sweet. 14-inch tom, same deal. Let's check it out. Turn you off. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to bump the volume on this one because it is significantly lower. You can tell that, I guess in this recording, the microphone input wasn't set up right. Like the volume on it could have been bumped a little bit higher. But I think when I was doing that, if I bumped it higher, it would pick up more of the snare drum. Anyways, excuses. You can also hear there's a ringing in this microphone, and it is the absolute worst. Ugh. One of those things where maybe it's only me who knows. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Let's check this one out with absolutely nothing on it. Oh, I feel horrible for my neighbors. So the gate cuts out pretty good. Channel EQ. Let's see if we can do something with that high pitch guy. So this EQ band here, it's not really doing much. See if we can pick it out. It's so hard to pick out a rattle. What's the note that a rattle makes? I don't know. We can just go through the bottom and see what happens. So this is taking out some of the high pitched stuff. Again, my terminology might be just completely wrong, so really sorry. Okay, another trick, if you're editing, keep it panned to the center so both your ears can hear it. I don't know. Let's turn on a high pass. Get this one out of here. Ooh. Ooh. Oh, okay. I don't know. I feel like I'm screwing this mix. Probably not. Okay, I think that might be it. Oh. I think that's it. I think we did it. We found it. How great is that? So you can hear that before there was a ring, there was like a rattle, and it's actually like it was inside of the microphone because it was hoop clamped, and that thing just shakes around like crazy. So after a year and a half of playing, the microphone actually came apart inside. I took it apart and was like, what's going on with this thing? So that's what that rattle is. It's not the clamp. It's not any hardware that's loose on the drum. I checked everything. So with the power of EQing, you can get rid of that stuff. So let's listen to it again. Now let's take what we did out. Hear that? That's crazy. Add it back in. Ugh. So good. So good. I'm actually going to save that preset. So let's learn how to save a EQ preset. You can see here I got a bunch of different stuff here. Let's just do a save as. And we're going to call it Floor Tom. Tom EQ floor. No rattle. Save. Cool. There we go. Add the limiter on. Add that smash and grab on. Same dealio as before. This time I'm using the smash instead of the grab, and I've got a lot of beef on this one. Threshold, beef, air, saturation none, mix 59.2. Normal, it's set to toms. Input 10.6. Output 3.6. Pretty good, pretty good, pretty good, pretty good. All right, cool. And then, of course, the 16-inch tom, which is tuned very low. Let's go find that one. We're going to solo this guy. Shkaboom. And we've already manually gated at the beginning of this video. So let's take a look at what this sounds like without anything. Oh, I'm actually going to move that back, pan it back. What was it, 20? 25. Seems about right. Done. There you go. That's how you do panning. I'm going to move this to the middle so we all hear it correctly. So you hear it rings out for a real long time. Let's do a gate on that to get rid of that ring. Let's see here. Increase this so you can all see what's going on. So the signal's open and closes. Got a little bit longer of a hold on here so you can like really get that powerful hit. I got the attack bumped up just a little bit so there's not a click at the beginning of that note. Reduces down to 100%, 11 decibel for, as the threshold. There we go. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so the EQ. Let's take a look at this. I'm just going to zoom this bad boy up. Now. So I did take a lot of the low end out because it's like super, super low. Like if you're listening to this with a sub on, it just wrecks the audio. I guess that's a sign of a good floor tom. Let's then add the limiter on. Great. You can kind of see what I've done here. Again, every other mixing video I've seen, they've all been like, we're going to bump it down 1 decibel. We just don't like that frequency in there. Here I am like 17, sure. 24, no problem. Let's go. Let's toss some compression on to make it slap. So we got the toms. Turn this bad boy on. Ooh. Ooh. Sounds mean. Ugh. Input 12. Output 5.2. Threshold -40. Heyo. Beef. Got some beef on there. Got some air to bring up the highs. Mixed in at 62%. Got the hard compression and normal. I don't know. Whatever that means. Kind of just played around with this stuff until I was like, that sounds good. So if you have tips down below, let me know. I could be doing this totally wrong. Chances are definitely doing that wrong. Anyways, so let's add in the reverbs. Ugh. Mean. I love it. Okay, let's bring that back to where it was. Call it 40. Sick. So now it's in the right speaker where if you're sitting behind the kit, it's going to be on the right hand side of the kit. Wicked. Overheads, or I guess hats. Let's go with the hi-hats. So I've got a microphone set up underneath the hi-hat, and I don't know, I might change it to above to get more stick articulation, but this is just picking up, a little bit more clarity on the hi-hats. I don't think I actually use the hats in this cover though, so let's see what we got. Oh, I do. I use them here. Let's just solo that so you can hear what's going on. So with this one, the EQs, I bump a little bit of the highs here, and I take out some of the, some of the same snare ranges. Like if we go back to the snare drum, because there is bleed. There's a lot of bleed. Not the Meshuggah song. Let's see if it lines up. Yeah, you can see, 434, 436 hertz, 316, 252, so a little bit off. I could probably change that around. These basically just kind of like I'm trying to take out that same frequency out of the microphones that I'm not going to be gating, because you'll have those same frequencies kind of coming through the mix and you'll be like, huh, it still sounds like shit. I took out a lot of the lows because you can definitely hear the bass drum without. I do send all the cymbals through Reverb as well, just an FYI. And then a little bit of compression on the hats. -4 input, 2 output, threshold 35, nothing on the beef. Bump up the highs a bit more, and this is going to be an overhead drum type. Mix 39%, so it's not too crazy. So there we go. That's that one. Left overhead and right overhead. So you can see here they're panned appropriately, -50, 30, and the third one here is the far China. So it's basically like I've got a setup where it's 3 overheads. And if you can think of it in terms of panning, the far China is going to be on the far right-hand side. The microphone is actually like just over top of the floor tom over there. So it picks up that China, the hats, a little bit of the ride, a couple of the crashes there. The right overhead is directly above the ride cymbal, and the left overhead is directly above the hi-hat and crash on the left-hand side of the kit. So that's how those are panned. And you can see here, let's take a look at the EQs for each of them. So let's do right. Let's do left. Then let's do far China. Now you can see here, I definitely took out 500 hertz on all of them. Took out some of the low end, just because I figured those are all going to be taken by the close mics. And then bumped a little bit of the highs on the far China. This frequency here, upon listening back, I was like, ooh, that's harsh. So I took that one out. Let's take a look at how those sound. We'll do a bigger section here. Maybe we'll do a section with some splashes and stuff. Ugh, this sucks. Look at this. You can see here that these beats aren't on time. And this is where I would be like, redo it. Ready? Like, it's not perfect. Anyways, so that's the mix on these guys. What I'm going to show you next is similar to what we did with the Snare Bottom. We're going to be checking out the phasing on the overheads. Now, what I did with the which ones did I switch? Okay, so I switched the actual overheads, and that would be to match the snare drum. So let's take a look at, we'll just take a look at the far China and the right overhead first. Now, if we go to these two, let's really zoom in. Boom. Prime example. So right here, let's just... Ugh. So that's a hit. You can see here that this wave, let's pump it up. So you can see here, let's even... There we go. So you see here, this sine wave, we'll call it a sine wave. We'll sound scientific. We'll sound scientific. So you can see here that as this one is coming up, this one is coming down, and that's what we're doing when we're checking the phase on a microphone. So now we know that these two, if we look at them, they're kind of in the same realm of, you know, almost following the same curves at the same time. If we go up one more to the hi-hats, you can see that it's a little bit more, it looks like it's out. Let's slide this one down to see what it looks like beside the, oh, okay. Well, maybe we just discovered something. So let's put the gain, we'll put a phase inverter on that one. Cool. Figure that out. Great. Now the real test. Let's take one of these guys up to the snare drum. Snare top, to be exact. Let's check it out. Let's go to a spot where there's actually a snare hit. That's going to be a lot better to check. Oh, yucky. Let's bring those waves down a little bit. Yeah, so, oh man, maybe this one's off too, because that definitely looks like it's going down and this one's coming up. Okay, well, let's put a phase on that bad boy. No, I don't want that one. Mono phase thing, yo. Done. Okay. I'm sure it's not going to be a huge deal. Let's move this guy back down. So we have inverted the far China. So that's inverted. Hats. Should invert those because it kind of looks like they're following the same. So if we invert the hats, that's on. Okay. That's a little easier to see. Those look like they're okay. Let's move that one up. Let's take a look at some other stuff. See, okay. So the right overhead looks like it's okay, but we flipped the far China. So this one's actually in. The left one, the hats look like they're in because this one's flipped. Looks like the left overhead, that's the only one that we would need it off. So it stays where it is. Difficulties, man. Difficulties. I don't know. Let's take a listen to it. Perfect. Well, let's listen to the overheads by themselves. We're going to do a C. Let's listen to that with the full mix now, and then we'll show you how to do bussing. Okay, we're gonna shrink that guy down. Okay, we're actually going to lower the we're going to lower the volume of that 12-inch tom. Yeah, maybe a bit more. We're going to bump the floor tom. We're going to bump that 16. Maybe a bit more. Maybe a little bit more. To me, it's not loud enough. Okay, cool. So that is the basics of the mixing. Let's take a look at the buses. Buses. This one's actually going to be bus number 6, which is this one and this one. Okay, so what a bus is basically you're taking everything from, say, the tom track, everything that's mixed from there, and you're going to send it out to a track that can receive multiple of these different tom tracks. And it's typically used for reverb, like a smash, like a totally crushed track where it's all saturated. So that's what we're doing here. I've got 2 different reverbs. I've got one for kind of a close sound and one for something that's in the distant to give it a little bit more of space. I've also got a bus here for the snare drum alone, and that's a smash track. We already went over that. This is a trick done by Nolly, and I picked that up. It just gives it a little bit more character and makes it sound kind of fat. And then the last one here is just a very, I think it's almost like a saturated reverb, so it gives it a little bit more character as well, to the bass drum and the snare drum only. So let's take a look at these. Basically, how you add a bus is, if you don't have anyone created, you can just, click on one of these sends, and you're going to send it to a blank bus, and then that will create one here. Ready? Where is it? Bus 8. Boom. So that's the one that I just created. I'm actually going to delete that. I'll say no send. And then, let's see here, we'll just delete. See ya. Literally just hit delete button on the keyboard. So there you go. All of these little wheels down here, that will be able to adjust how much of this, this track is going to whatever bus you're going to. So let's take a look at what we have for bus number 3. Oh, start it over. Maybe we'll do like a section here. So that's the far away reverb. Again, stock plugins. I like this nice room. Maybe it's small spaces, plate reverb, drum plate. Okay, I guess it's not the nice room. I believe there's a nice room. Nice room, there it is. That's a pretty good one as well. So that's what I've got going on here. Channel EQ, I took out a lot of the lows because I think with the far away, it could get you could get like pretty muddy if you have a lot of low end in there. Like, yeah, I think taking it out, like if we add the bass drum in, just gets a little bit too much. Took out some of the boxiness, pumped some of the highs, and a little bit of this high pass here. I think that's what it's called. Correct me if I'm wrong. Don't care. I do care, but here we are. The next reverb that I have is one that's just a little bit closer. As you can see, it's on almost all of the tracks here. Toms, snare drums. The only one I don't have this one on is the actual snare drum's top. So that's kind of fun. Let's listen to this one. So that's a little bit closer, a little bit more low end stuff happening there as well. As you can see here, it's decay 716 milliseconds compared to the other one, which is 1.35 seconds. So one's a bit shorter, one's a bit longer. Together, they sound pretty good together. Really no EQ stuff going on here. I'm sure I could play around with it and make it sound real good, but I just don't. Let's listen to both of them. And just to give you guys an idea of how the busing works and how the sending works to it, let's listen to this one reverb here. And we're going to send, let's do the snare. So this is bus 4. Let's bring this bad boy up. It's already pretty prominent. Right. So that's kind of how you adjust what's coming into these reverbs here. Let's go to the next one, Smash. So this is just for the snare drum. I've got it turned down in the mix, so when you're listening to the snare, like if it was really turned up, it'd be a little bit overbearing. Cool. And then finally, this last reverb here, bus number 6, we've got the snare drum and the bass drum going to it. So let's listen to that. Let's lower some of these guys. Oh, what do we got? So as you can hear, I was just kind of going back and forth between the already, call it spaced reverb, and this one, because it did have similar sounds to it, but I think with them all combined together, it gives like this cool, I don't know, just gives it more, like, more power behind it. Sounds pretty good to me, and that's really what I think matters the most. If you like it, then keep on going with it. And then finally here, we've got this stereo out. So this, it's got a little bit of the low end taken out. I think that was just a general decision after listening through a bunch of different speakers and being like, wow, the low end is like crushing this speaker system. And so taking that out kind of helped eliminate that issue. Now, let's take a look at volumes. I'm going to just shrink that down so we can see everything. Okay, so the idea is to keep these values out of the red, and I'm definitely going to be in the red. Let's listen to it with the song, though. Oh, and not soloed down here. Thanks. 2. Ooh, mute. Okay, so we already see here that the toms are over. The 14 is in the red for sure. The snare is pretty high, so maybe the bass drum is pretty high too. Huh. Let's just keep on going. Okay, so one way to do the volumes on a part that you know is troublesome here is just to set a looped area and then just kind of adjust with that. Okay, I think that's all right. I can live with it being a little bit over. It's not going to do anything too serious. So you can see here the bass drum is still kicking at 3.7. It's doing all right. Those toms are still okay. If anything else comes up, it's going to show up red as you're going through. I'm sure you can figure this out for your own DAW that you're using. Just keep an eye on those master volumes here. Okay, I like that. You can see here on the overall, nothing is over on this fill. So it's just that. So you can see it's that. It might just be the snare hits there, which pops it over. Cool. Little stick click at the end. Hell yeah. Let's see if we can see that. Boom, there it is. Cool. Oh no, we're adjusting volumes. What is this? Shift and minus or plus. Yikes. Maybe I'll have to rewatch this video so I can see what I changed. Cool. All right. Okay, so that is basically it. That's the process I go through for mixing these tracks. Maybe I'll bring that snare down a bit. It is very prominent. But where else should old-fashioned values which we used to rely Cool. All right. Well, that is the process of the mixing that I do. Give it a good listen to once it's done. Once you've finished your mix, export it, listen to it, maybe for a day. Listen to it through your phone, listen to it through different speakers, Bluetooth speakers, even take it to your car or somebody's car, truck, whatever. Just listen to it through as many different types of speakers as you can get your hands on, just to really hear how it's going to sound. That'll give you a general idea if it's something that's oh, this sounds like something that could be on the radio, or something that is pleasing. So I hope this video was at least a little bit helpful for you. If it wasn't, then hey, here we are, and you're still here. But anyways, thank you so much for checking it out. Again, any comments, leave them down below. Like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And you can definitely check out the final product of this mix in the description, in the pinned comment. And yeah, maybe we'll do this again sometime. Yeah, it's pretty good.